So you screwed over your employees, and you now have ghosts harassing you. It must be Christmas! So you've settled in for your annual viewing of A Muppet Christmas Carol, which we all know is the best one, don't add us. But you think to yourself, this is kind of a weird story, isn't it? Ghosts visit a crotchety old man on Christmas Eve and try to make him into a decent human being, and there's also a subplot involving a dying child? This is heartwarming? Well, how did we get from those sorts of heartwarming Christmas stories to our current movies about harried big city executives who come back to their rural hometown for the holidays and both relearn the true meaning of the season and fall in love with a plucky bakery owner? Well, it's a story, and buckle in, because it's a good one. So even though Christmas is a Christian holiday, many of the traditions that we use to celebrate this season harken back to pre-Christian times, and in fact, this one goes back before recorded history. In the Northern Hemisphere at this time, the daylight is getting shorter and shorter, vegetation is dead or dying rapidly before our eyes, and so many cultures had stories and traditions and religious beliefs talking about this time. As the earth around us is actively dying, the veil between worlds is getting thinner and thinner, allowing ghosts and other supernatural elements to mingle freely among the living. Why would these ghosts come back to hang out with the living? Well, they may be causing mischief, they may be settling old scores, comforting loved ones, or asking you to avenge your father's death, and your father was the king of Denmark, and your uncle may have killed him. Existential crisis time. In the Middle Ages, we have records of peasants telling each other ghost stories in the long, dark nights around Christmas. These stories had survived both 2 to 13 and 1400s, but had also survived the coming of Christianity and had moved from the winter solstice to Christmas and the celebration of the 12 days of Christmas, or 12th night, as it's sometimes known. But the Reformation would throw a cog not just into the telling of ghost stories at this time, but also the celebration of Christmas as we knew it. So many Protestant denominations openly opposed the celebration of holidays and feast days and the celebrations that went along with them. So no big holiday dinners, no carols, and no public drinking for them. Our most famous example of this is the Puritans who landed in Plymouth Rock. They saw the celebration of Christmas as a decadent holiday that encouraged public drunkenness and lawlessness, and they outright forbade the celebration of Christmas. But just between you and me, the Puritans hated fun of all kinds, and that's why you don't really see Puritans around too much anymore. But their outright banning of the holiday would set back the celebration of Christmas in the northern United States for decades. In the 1700s and early 1800s, it wouldn't have been unusual at all for your employer to make you come in and work a full day on Christmas. Enter the Victorians, who went absolutely nuts for Christmas. The Victorian period refers to the period of Queen Victoria's reign, who was the second longest reigning English monarch, and also Empress of India, and a bunch of other things that really don't matter to our story. But she ascended to the throne in 1837. Incidentally, that was also when Michigan became a state, and she died in January of 1901. So her reign encompassed most of the 1800s, when there was so many technological innovations going on. So it was both a lot of inventions, a lot of technology, a lot of factories going up, a lot of hopes for making people's lives easier and better. And this was also a period of increasing education and literacy rates as well, throughout the very upper classes, all throughout the poorest of the poor. And rampant colonialism was bringing new people, ideas, food, and traditions from other parts of the world into the West. In 1840, Victoria marries Prince Albert, a minor German prince. And Americans, just like today, love royal weddings. We might not want to be ruled by a monarch, but we absolutely love the pageantry of two wealthy, relatively good-looking hereditary monarchs getting married. We love a good wedding. This is known. And Prince Albert brought a lot of German Christmas traditions to England upon his marriage, including the Christmas tree. Christmas trees were virtually unknown in England and the United States until that time. It was really only in pockets of German communities that you would see Christmas trees. But suddenly, illustrations went around the world of Queen Victoria and her family sat around a Christmas tree, and everyone had to have one. In the late 1800s, Philadelphia newspapers reported that even the Jewish residents of the city wanted Christmas trees. Excessive gift giving, over-the-top decorating, Christmas cards, and a lot of the foods that still grace our holiday tables today have their origins in this era. But it wasn't all fun and games. On both sides of the Atlantic, disparities between the wealthy and the not were increasing at a rapid rate. As people moved from the countryside into cities to work in these new factories, seeking a better life, they found that the cities were not being built to accommodate them. Many families would move into small buildings with sometimes hundreds of other people, where there was raw sewage and rampant disease. While the rich did get richer, a lot of the poor lived on the brink of homelessness, watching their children die of malnutrition and disease. The ever-increasing newspaper industry was reporting on more and more and more crime, because denser populations equal more crime. And this was kind of the start of our culture's true crime obsession, which really hasn't abated to this day. It's been said that two men were responsible for more social reforms during the Victorian period than anyone else. Those two men, Charles Dickens and Jack the Ripper. Although, to be fair, only one of them was actively trying to reform the system. Guess which one? Now, Dickens in his youth had worked as a reporter, which brought him a first-hand look at both the poverty that existed in his native London, but also the people who were in those systems. So his books have a lot of super memorable characters, and many of them live on the very margins of society, which brought many people in the upper classes a first-hand look at just what some of their fellow creatures were going through, and made them a lot more sympathetic and empathetic to the poor. And in 1843, when A Christmas Carol was published, the public ate this story up. It was sold out within weeks, and by the next year, the novel had already gone through 13 different printings. So what made this story just so potent in the culture and made so many people connect with it? Well, the tradition of the ghost story around Christmas or the winter solstice was already fading. It was being replaced by Christmas trees, carols, and new foods. But he was tapping not only into that tradition, which some people still had nostalgia for, but he was also tapping into this new social consciousness surrounding poverty, our new interest in true crime, and a trope that we still use to tell stories to this day, which is to incorporate supernatural elements or horror elements. So if you think about it, the very first fairy tales that you learn often include morals like Stay out of the forest. Don't go into houses made out of candy owned by witches. And many of our horror movies today teach lessons like don't bully people, otherwise they'll develop telekinesis and you'll be sorry. Dolls are creepy. Racism is really, really bad. Don't do it. And unbridled consumerism will turn us all into zombies. It seems like we connect and remember these morals a lot better if they involve horror or supernatural elements. We seem to digest those stories a heck of a lot easier. And these supernatural elements are still with us at Christmas time, even though we might not recognize them as such. I mean, think about movies that you've seen where our hairy, big city executive meets a man on Christmas Eve who might just be Santa Claus. A handsome lumberjack, through a series of unlikely and possibly supernatural events, arrives just in time to save Christmas for the small town. An evil lawyer, intent on shutting down the small town bakery, has his heart softened when he hears Christmas carols sung by a children's choir. Now, am I saying that winter solstice ghost stories have led directly to our modern made-for-TV Hallmark Christmas movies? Yeah, I am. I'm saying there is a direct connection. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go enter a baking contest in a small town populated entirely by extremely good-looking people and learn the true meaning of the season. So I'll see you later.